This is Dynasty Mode, the unofficial EA Sports College Football Game podcast. My name is Arky, and the game is dropping in 1 week for the first time in 11 long years. And a lot of questions need to be answered about that college football video game. But the number one question to be answered is, which team do you start with in Dynasty Mode? You can only have one first, and we're about to figure out who exactly is going to be your first. Now, I have taken my time to organize all the college football programs into categories to help you decide who should be your college football first dynasty when the new video game comes out next week. First, let's start with the basic beginner top shelf teams. This is what I call the no-fly list, or with a slight caveat, if you start there, you have to invent a scandal, and you got to be gone by year one. Period. End of story. These are the programs like Ohio State and Texas and Alabama and Georgia. These are teams that are way too good, way too many stars, way too good of a recruiting advantage, way too much. These are teams I would argue you should never, ever even go coach, much less start with. However, my caveat is if you're willing to go there for 1 year, and let's say you're just out of the box high school coach, right? You're a Jeremy Pruitt type, right? That's a cool name. You decide, hey, I'm going to go straight from high school defensive backs to straight up Florida, head coaching style. And if that works for you, wonderful. But you can't stay more than a year, not for the very first year. And then in that year, you have to do what I used to do back in the day, which is invent reasons why programs don't exist anymore or why you need to leave. Some type of scandal, which should be easy with the new name, image, and likeness stuff going out there. Your brain can run 1,000 miles an hour. Figure it out. But you can't stay more than a year, because if you do, you're a front runner and you suck. Sorry, you suck. You just suck. For the very first dynasty to be one of these teams? No. Awful. No Notre Dame, no Michigan. And even though Nebraska hasn't been good in God knows how long, they're still too big of a program to be going to. So these are no-fly lists. USC, you're there. Oklahoma, there. Now you may be wondering, what's up with Northwestern? Why would Northwestern be on there? Northwestern's on the list because no one should ever coach Northwestern. There is literally nothing for you there. And they won't even have a stadium for another decade. So this is your no-fly list. Maybe invent a scandal, and then you have to come back from the bottom. That's right. Come from the bottom to the top, and then maybe still, though, avoid these teams. You're not coming back to these teams. These are the no-fly, don't do it list. Now, this may be my favorite list. These are the literal outlaws of college football. Now, these programs, even though there are some bigger names on here, they are hilarious with how they run amok, with how they are scofflaws, with how much they are in trouble. But also, some of these programs are just out in the middle of nowhere, and they're in no man's land. Like, look over here. That's Cincinnati. What is Cincinnati doing anywhere? Right over there on the right. Cincinnati is nothing, but they're a literal hole in the wall. So yeah, go be a part of Cincinnati. Day one, sure. These programs like Tennessee, like Auburn, like Oregon State, they say that you're willing to go have a good time. You can stay here a decade plus. This is where you can really get into the legitimate running afoul of the NIL. This is where recruiting violations, this is where you get to be the dirty guy. And I'm okay with starting out as the dirty guy. It's the most fun. Most of these programs have at least somewhat interesting stadiums or interesting histories. Like Liberty's history doesn't exist except for Jerry Falwell and him and his wife loving to, get watched by pool boys, or at least Falwell likes to watch his pool boy and his wife. Listen, that's something I don't want to talk about right now, but we should talk about at some point. It's a real big issue. What's Missouri, right? Missouri's literally in the middle of nowhere. Federal Field is nothing but rocks on one side and a goalpost on the other. But that what makes them great as far as being an outlaw in this program. Look at Oklahoma State, okay? Just look at some of these mascots. Look at some of these logos. These are clearly terrible people. Awful people. Look, New Mexico State's mascot has 2 6-shooters. What are you talking about, New Mexico State? Look, one of Texas Tech's alternate logos is a literal, I don't want to say demon. He's a mass crusader. He's a raider. He's on the horse coming after you. Look at some of these bad people. UNLV, the running rebel. Come on. Come on. These are terrible scofflaw programs. I love it. And some of them just literally break all the rules. Auburn breaks all the rules. Louisville breaks all the rules. Tennessee's handing out money in McDonald's bags. These are wonderful programs to go to for your first one because it just says you're dirty and you like to be a little dirty to start off. And that's okay with me. The ChatGPT conference. The reason we're the ChatGPT conference is because this is the set of teams that, to me, if you said to AI, who should be this startup program I should start with college football 25 and who should be the very first one? These are probably the programs AI would spit out, right? Let's look at San Jose State, right? A literal nothing burger with a little weird looking stadium. South Alabama, a cute stadium in Mobile, but is that really the kind of program you want to start with? It's kind of a little bit of nothing. Much the same way as Buffalo. Buffalo is on a lacrosse field. Let's just be honest. That's their field. Football just happens to get played there. All right? Utah State, there is nothing interesting about Utah State. No, except for some of the news recently. Nothing other than that is interesting about Utah State becoming App State. App State is the darling, right? Going back to 2007 when they beat and upset Michigan. They're the darling, and they've been good for years, and they've won a bunch of games, and they've had some upsets and some great, late game heroics. But it's pretty simple, pretty basic. Nothing really creative about it. There's nothing really wrong with these programs. It's just, to me, not interesting. Like James Madison, God bless them, but they're good. Like, what do you want to do with James Madison? Like, they're going to win some games. Do you want to build from that? No. I think the most controversial opinion probably on here is Army. This is no offense to those who have served this great country, who continue to serve this great country in that branch of the military. However, when anyone talks about the triple option, it's always Army. And you even saw with the preview videos, it's Army running the triple option. It's the been done, trodden through freaking triple option team. And I get it, right? It's been quirky for a while, but we haven't had this game in 11 years. Do you really want to do triple option again with Army? Or you can run variations of that with, other service branches like Navy before. Bring the triple option back over there. How about Air Force? That's a pretty solid one. No one ever wants to talk about Air Force, and all Air Force does is win a dozen games every year. They're like 9 or 10. But they're a good, fun program. Why not introduce yourself to Air Force if you're going to do the triple option style, or if you want to go with the service academy? It's fine. It's completely fine to choose not Army. These are just boilerplate blues right there. Hawaii, no offense to the Rainbows, got their shirt on right now. They don't have a real stadium right now. If you want to go to Hawaii, what's the fun in that? Like, you want Aloha Stadium. They're rebuilding that SOB, right? Ed is still working on it. Hawaii, not much to it. Not much to it. Don't like it. Don't like it. Last of the Mohicans. This is one of my favorite lists of this entire thing. These are the last, I truly believe, the last programs that you can play with where there is a lot of uniqueness to them. There is either some variation of their field and stadium, some variation of that with their fans, with the program's history, with their colors, with all of that. There's some variation of different with them. That's why I like North Carolina. I mean, who gets to play in Argyle? It's Argyle. Come on. It's different. It's a really pretty stadium. South Carolina with Sandstorm. The fact that Sandstorm is in the game, that is a huge reason to go be a part of this random program to go build up in the Southeastern Conference. Because their little history is like one Heisman winner in the 40s and like 1 year in the SEC where they got to the championship game with Steve Spurrier. Like that's their history. That doesn't even include Jadeveon Clowney, who was the top pick. Like that's not even the fun stuff. That's not even the fun stuff. The fun stuff is that stadium. Oh man, and Cocky, the mascot. Come on. That's kind of neat. This is where Navy comes in. Come on. Navy is the real team to do if you're going to Service Academy. That's a truly different experience. That's a truly cool little enclave out there on the East Coast. Look at Virginia Tech. We all know about Virginia Tech. I think the bad part about Virginia Tech is why I waffle with them on this list is that we're not going to get the Enter Sandman. At least, unless someone teases us that. We're not going to get Enter Sandman, which is a huge downgrade for this list. But that stadium in Blacksburg, been to it in person. Very nice. Very nice. And I think they'll try to compensate for that music to some degree. Whether it sounds cool or not, we'll see. Tulane, up and coming, cool, new, cute stadium. You could go there and spend a while on the Outpost. Ole Miss. Ole Miss is the darling for me out of this. There's actually one darling and one dud in here. Darling is Ole Miss just because the Oxford Grove is phenomenal. It's a great place to sort of be. You're probably not going to get a ton of that, but what you will get is a pretty neat stadium that they're upgrading, and they've been doing it by Hemingway Stadium. However, the dud on this list is Colorado. And I only say that because this is going to be the most played team in all the video game. It's just, get used to it. You're going to see a lot of people simulating and playing this game on your TikTok, on your Twitches, on your YouTubes, whatever. I will not be one of them. I will never go to Colorado. I will send my program to go play road games at Colorado. I will never go play Colorado as Colorado just because it's too much. But the field's amazing. The fact that if you've seen snow games happen in Colorado and Boulder, they're cool. They're really cool. It's a cool atmosphere to be able to take part of. So I'm a big fan. These are big fans of me. And Syracuse, let's not forget Syracuse has the oldest, dumbest dome. But let's get some cool games happening in it. Yeah, this is the list. If you want to talk about the teams that you should start with if you're truly interested in building a program from the very, very bottom, these are the teams that you can consider. The hardest teams with the hardest places, not necessarily the most attractive stadiums, nothing really fun about them for the most part. You have to become the good and fun in them. You have to do all this. This is my hawk tour. That's right. I'm going to hit on this trend before I've completely seen him murdered to death, which is pretty close. These are the ones that you got to love, like love beyond love to want to do. That's why I love building at places like Kent State. Eastern Michigan was the last place I went to. Eastern Michigan on NCAA, college football revamp, be fair. I won 7 out of 8 national championships at Eastern Michigan. Was never going to leave. But this new game was coming out, and so I had to personally invent my own scandal to where the program got turned away. And by turned away, I mean voted out of existence by the board. A 13-member board voted 11-2 to vote for college football to no longer exist at Eastern Michigan. Why did I do that? Because I had to have an end story, right? I'm a writer at heart. I have to see the follow through of this. And also, it got too easy at Eastern Michigan, which is weird. The hardest level eventually gets too easy. That's something we'll deal with the new video game. Hopefully, it's a lot harder to be able to be good in. But this is a place where, from the bottom, you really got to be able to want it. East Carolina, I love so much. It's such a cool logo. It's such a unique looking layout of a stadium. They just need to be good. They need you. Just like Monroe. Monroe's got a terrible stadium, right? An awful stadium. But if you want to start with the bottom, who's been a bad team for a long time, that's what you do. FIU. FIU's a nothing burger. Arkansas State's a nothing burger out in Jonesboro. Nothing. Texas State. Texas State kind of got like a neat little looking stadium. It's pretty unique and different. I kind of like it. But Georgia State. Georgia State plays at a baseball field that's been converted for them. I mean, these are the kind. UConn, UMass, Nevada. These are the places that are outposts. UConn and UMass have been horrible. So that's the fun part about trying to make them good again. Boston College, let's be fair. Boston College is barely a Power 5 team ever. They had like 2 years, like Matt Ryan was around. I'm just telling you, they shouldn't be what you call a Power 5 conference. And I hate that term anyway. What they should be is right here where you want to build them. If you want to start in a big time conference and you want to start at the bottom tier, Boston College, I think, is the perfect spot for that team to start a build upon. Kingmakers. This list is cool for one reason. These are the programs that I think, honestly, if you go to and you start there, you're already on pace to be able to take your next big job. And so this is where I think you got to be a little careful wanting to start with a Virginia or a Pitt or an NIU. These are teams that have had success before, that aren't necessarily in the dregs of society in the college football landscape, that are having success arguably now, depending upon which team you're looking at. And if you're looking to get that next big job to become a king or to be able to be a nationwide name in this video game, you can be that name at a Western Kentucky if you're really, really good. Western Kentucky's built up some name brand value. I mean, look at that cute fella, right? You know who that is before I even put him on the screen. Georgia Tech, it's got Atlanta. It's got a lot of things going for it. They had the triple option with Paul Johnson for a while, and now, they're not great, but they have a lineage there. I mean, they have a pregame tradition, the Ramblin' Wreck. North Texas is a place that might be a little bit of an outlier here, but that's also one of those Texas programs that if you want to be known somewhere then and go to become your next big job, that's where you can do it. Although, again, not jobs I'm suggesting that you be able to take right out the gate. 1 year wonders. Okay, so these are the teams where you got 1 year. You got 1 year to play with it, figure it out, look at it, and that's it. Because there is nothing else after that 1 year. And yeah, that includes Air Force, who I mentioned earlier. Air Force, phenomenal stadium. Air Force, phenomenal uniforms and branding. But about a year is all I need. Same thing in Arkansas. Like, there's not really anything in Arkansas for anyone. It's not an elite job. It's not a crazy one. It's not even a fun job. Like, some of these take the fun out, aren't the fun jobs. Like Kentucky. What's fun about Kentucky? Be real. If your college football dynasty starts with Kentucky, are you going to enjoy it? No, you're not going to enjoy it. You get 1 year at a UTEP, or you get 1 year at a Wyoming. You get to see the Brown end zone. You're like, okay, I got it. I got everything Laramie has to offer. Or I got the uniqueness of Duke Stadium, right? I get the farm in Stanford. I get it. I get 4 at Fresno State. I had my time here 1 year. I never need to see them. And guess what? I never need to bring my program back here. These are not truly fascinating job to places. These are just kind of, if you really need to do it, 1 year. 1 year. You don't have to invent a scandal. Just take a job the next year. Just do something more interesting the next year. Yeah, these are some basic benches. You know what I mean? These are the brands that I think people find interesting and cool, but really are kind of blah. And it starts with like Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt seems like it would be a good job, build up a bad program. But again, you're in the SEC and you're in a terrible stadium that's being upgraded and you won't even have it the first year you start. There's not a lot to it. Iowa's on this list because Iowa is the most boring ever. And sure, you could come in and run a brand new offense and make it interesting. But what's interesting about the Hawkeyes outside of the hospital? And then if it's featured, I can bring my program there to see the waving to the hospital. I can do that, and I'm okay with that. But I don't have to make my program Iowa. Iowa's I don't even talk about Kirk Ferentz. I have serious issues with him. There's not much to Iowa. It's just nothing. And it's a big program in a big conference that's had some big years, but literally the most boring of ways to be in that conference, in that goodness level of being in at Big Ten championship games. Boise State's a little controversial here, don't you think? Boise State is a lot like Army in the fact that Boise State had the kitschy blue turf. But y'all, we've been playing on that for well over a decade. We're good with that. We don't have to see this over and over and over again. We don't have to start with Boise State. Boise is just Boise at this point. And that's fine to be a job along the way, but don't start at Boise State. Boise State is boring. UCF, a lot of the same things. UCF's a little boring. UCF had that run, right, where they were undefeated, deserved national champions, and now they are just the astronaut school. Or they go to space every year. Or they wear cool looking uniforms. Ish. Now I don't find them great, but whatever. There you have some options to play with to be creative, but the field's not much, the stadium's not much, and the team, for year one, I think that is a team where you think is going to be more lower tier and more building than you think it is, and probably than actually is, and probably less fun than what you're probably thinking. UCLA, boy, if there is a white girl basic bench team, that's UCLA. Gorgeous stadium, great background behind it, great color scheme of the uniforms, great everything, except it just feels hammered and boring. And the Rose Bowl's already in big games, so we get to see that stadium before. Why? Why start at UCLA? Don't start at UCLA. Don't start at Utah. Don't start at Washington, for crying out loud. Washington's a cool stadium, but is it? Like, it's a loud stadium, but is it interesting? Like, unless you're really into the composure part of the game where you're trying to get people to run different routes, it's not there for me. Finally, this is Maction Life Forever, baby. This is my heart. These are all the MAC teams that can be considered for your first year. And I would have no problem with you playing any one of these teams as your first year team because they are in the MAC. Now, you got Toledo, you got Bowling Green, you got Central Michigan, and sure, I have Purdue in there, but Purdue feels like a MAC team. Don't they? Think about it. Don't they have the style of offense and the uniform colors and kind of the stadium to feel like a MAC team? Temple feels like a MAC team to me too. So does Kansas. They're a team. Marshall, MAC team. That's a MAC team right now. Don't care what history says. Don't care what the future says. Right now, these are MAC teams and what feels like MAC teams. So if you want to play as Temple, I consider you part of Maction Life Forever. If you want to play as Kansas, same thing. And even some of these other MAC teams. I had MAC teams on the other list that didn't feel like MAC teams. Buffalo doesn't feel like a MAC team. That's a Chat GPT conference team. Who cares about that program, right? But who cares about Ohio? Who cares about Miami of Ohio? Bowling Green? Funky colors? Playing in the snow? That's what I'm talking about. This is to me what makes this game so unique and interesting. Is that you get to do kind of whatever you want to do with the programs, right? You get to play however you want to play, wherever you want to play. But if you choose your first team poorly, I think it says a lot about you. I think it says a lot about you as a person. And I don't want to sit here and have to judge you for it. So have a lot of great fun with this game. It's going to be phenomenal. Go ahead. First thing you do, download the game. Go get the disc if you have that version. Start a Dynasty. Pick a team. Set up your coach. Then go play with the other stuff. Get the Dynasty off the ground. Then play with the other features in the game. That's going to do it for us Everybody have a wonderful time playing college football 25. Save and send to next week, everybody.